It began on a calm day in deep space, far beyond the mapped routes of ordinary trade and patrol lines. The human warship Valiant moved quietly through the darkness, its engines humming softly like a heartbeat that never stopped. For the crew, it was another routine watch. Long hours, steady systems, and the comfort of knowing that humanity's finest vessel was always ready for whatever the galaxy threw at it. But no one aboard expected what the scanners picked up that morning. The first signal came as a faint echo, something large, something not human. The ship's detection officer frowned at the readings, thinking it was interference or maybe a reflection from a distant asteroid belt. But when the signal appeared again, stronger and clearer, a chill ran down everyone's spine, multiple signatures, hundreds. At first, no one wanted to believe it. The vastness of space made such numbers impossible to imagine. Hundreds of ships moving in perfect formation, all unknown, all advancing from the dark. The officer ran a quick calibration, then another, hoping it was an error. But it wasn't. The system was accurate. Within minutes, the bridge filled with tension. The captain was called to the command chair. The crew moved quickly, hands flying over glowing controls, voices sharp and low. The atmosphere changed from calm routine to quiet readiness. Out in the black, faint lights flickered, tiny stars that weren't stars at all. The alien fleet was approaching. For generations, humanity had spread through the galaxy, slowly but steadily. They had built colonies on dead moons, cities under oceans, and stations that floated above gas giants. Their ships were powerful but disciplined. They didn't conquer. They explored, traded, and defended their space with quiet strength. Most alien civilizations respected that balance. A few feared it, but none had ever dared to test it. Until that day. As the unknown ships drew closer, communications officers began picking up strange transmissions. The sounds were harsh and rhythmic, mixed with deep, metallic tones. It wasn't a language the translation systems recognized right away, but soon it began to decode the message. The first few words made the captain narrow his eyes. It was a demand. The alien fleet declared that humanity's presence had spread too far. They ordered the Valiant to surrender and prepare to be boarded. The message repeated again and again, filled with confidence and arrogance, as if this was already their victory. For a long moment, no one spoke on the bridge. The message echoed, then faded. The crew exchanged silent glances. They all knew what that kind of demand meant. It wasn't about negotiation. It was about domination. Finally, the captain stood. His voice was calm, even quiet, but there was weight in it. He looked at his communication officer and gave a single order. "Send them a reply," he said. Just one line. The officer nodded, waiting. The captain's eyes stayed on the dark view ahead where the alien lights grew brighter, sharper, closer. His voice didn't rise, but it carried the kind of strength that no translator could miss. "We don't surrender. Ever." The message was transmitted. Across the emptiness of space, it reached the alien fleet. For a few moments, there was no reply. Then the sensors showed a sudden burst of energy. Hundreds of ships shifting into attack formation. That was their answer. On the bridge, the lights dimmed as red alert flashed through the corridors. Every system came alive. The hum of reactors deepened. The walls seemed to vibrate faintly under power buildup. The Valiant had been challenged, and now it would respond. But before battle came, there was a strange stillness. Outside the ship, the stars looked distant and innocent, as if unaware that in a few minutes, the quiet part of the galaxy would become a storm of light and fire. Inside, the crew worked with silent coordination. Every person knew their role. Every motion was exact, practiced, and focused. This wasn't the first time humans had faced danger in space, but this felt different. This was not a pirate ambush or a rogue asteroid field. This was an organized alien armada. Hundreds of warships, massive and bristling with weapons designed for one purpose: to destroy. The Valiant was one ship. One against hundreds, and yet there was no fear. Only focus. The ship was humanity's masterpiece, the result of centuries of innovation and sacrifice. Its armor was built from neutron composite metal, its energy shields layered with adaptive smart fields. Deep inside, a dark matter reactor pulsed quietly, a power source that few species even believed possible. Every part of it, from the smallest circuit to the largest cannon, was built for one thing: survival. And it wasn't just a machine. It was home to a crew that understood what it meant to defend that survival. Each of them carried the same thought. If this was where they made their stand, then so be it. As the alien ships closed in, the captain stood silently, hands behind his back. He didn't shout orders. He didn't need to. His crew already knew what came next. The radar officer reported the alien formation tightening. The weapons team called out firing ranges. The communications officer said no further messages had been received. Everything was ready. Outside, space began to shimmer with strange energy as the alien fleet charged its weapons. Blue and green lights flickered across the void like distant lightning. Inside, the Valiant waited, still and silent. The captain's voice came through the command deck softly but clearly. Weapons free. That was all it took. Every console on the bridge lit up at once. Power surged through the ship's massive structure. Hidden panels opened along its hull, revealing the dark glint of rail cannons, missile pods, and directed energy turrets. The crew braced. The aliens fired first. Blinding waves of energy tore through space, painting it in color and chaos. Massive blasts of plasma and antimatter struck the Valiant's shields, wrapping it in explosions so bright they could be seen from light years away. For a heartbeat, the Valiant disappeared inside the storm. Then the fire faded. The ship was still there, untouched. Its shields shimmered like calm water, glowing faintly before returning to clear. Not a single alarm sounded. The alien fleet had thrown everything it had in that first strike, and nothing had pierced the human defenses. On the bridge, the crew didn't celebrate. They simply continued calm, efficient, human. The captain watched the enemy formation through the main display. He gave one short command, return fire. The Valiant moved. Its cannons roared. Though in space there was no sound, only the silent flash of power. Rail slugs traveling at a fraction below light speed tore through the alien ranks. 1, 2, 5 ships vanished in seconds. The rest shifted, trying to dodge, trying to regroup. But the human targeting systems predicted every move before it happened. In less than a minute, dozens of alien ships were gone, erased into floating wreckage. The aliens tried to respond, spreading their formation, firing in wild patterns. But panic had already begun to take hold. The more they fired, the more it became clear that their weapons were useless. Their energy bursts scattered against the Valiant's shields like rain on steel. Inside the human ship, not a single crew member lost focus. Every command was quiet and professional. Every movement was precise. They weren't fighting for victory. They were fighting because they had no other choice. The Valiant was defending not just its crew, but the quiet belief that humanity belonged among the stars. As the alien ships continued to fall, the void filled with debris and fading light. It was a sight both beautiful and terrifying, an entire fleet breaking apart against a single human warship. And yet, amid all that destruction, the captain felt no pride. He felt only a deep, steady certainty that this would be remembered. This was not an act of cruelty. It was a warning. By the time the last of the alien ships tried to retreat, the Valiant's sensors showed that most of their fleet was gone. The survivors turned and fled into the darkness, their formation shattered. The captain gave no order to pursue. There was no need. The message had already been delivered. In the silent aftermath, the ship's systems slowly returned to normal. Red lights faded to white. The hum of battle was replaced once again by the quiet rhythm of deep space. The Valiant continued on its path, alone and undamaged, leaving behind only drifting fragments and silence. No one on board spoke for a while. Everyone understood what had just happened. A single human warship had faced a galactic fleet and crushed it instantly. The stars had barely settled after the battle when a faint signal reached the Valiant's communication deck. The alien fleet that had been crushed so easily had left one thing behind, a message carried in broken fragments of code, half lost in the static. The signal was faint, almost unreadable, but it was there. The translation systems worked to piece it together, and slowly, the meaning became clear. It wasn't a surrender. It wasn't even a call for peace. It was a challenge. The aliens had sworn that this defeat was only the beginning. They claimed more fleets were coming, that humanity's advance would end, and that the galaxy would soon remember who truly ruled the stars. On the bridge, the captain listened quietly as the translation played. The words were full of rage, pride, and disbelief. The alien voice cracked with fury, promising vengeance for their fallen. For a long time, no one said anything. The sound faded, replaced by the soft hum of the ship. Then the captain gave a small sigh and looked at his officers. "They still don't understand," he said quietly. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even surprised. Humanity had seen this kind of arrogance before, from empires, warlords, and tyrants who believed strength was measured only in numbers. The galaxy, it seemed, was no different. But this was no longer about proving who was stronger. It was about something deeper. Respect. The Valiant's crew worked in silence, scanning the wreckage that drifted through the void. Pieces of alien ships floated aimlessly, glowing faintly with fading energy. Some fragments were large enough to hold memory cores and communication logs. They gathered what they could, hoping to understand who these attackers were and where they had come from. As the hours passed, the ship's systems began to uncover more data. The attackers called themselves the Zir Dominion, an ancient empire that ruled dozens of worlds in the Eastern Spiral Arm. They were old, proud, and ruthless. Their technology was advanced, but their beliefs were older than their ships. To them, the galaxy was meant to be ruled, not shared. When they first heard of humans, a young species from a single blue planet, they didn't take the news seriously. They thought humans were weak explorers, untested and naive. When they learned how fast Earth's colonies had spread, they grew suspicious. And when they saw how powerful human ships had become, they grew afraid. That fear turned to hatred. The Zir Dominion had destroyed many civilizations before. They believed they could do it again, but they hadn't expected what they found that day, a single human warship that refused to fall. In the hours after the battle, the Valiant's crew studied the data, piecing together a story of pride, fear, and misunderstanding. It was almost sad in a way. The aliens hadn't come for peace or even negotiation. They came because they were afraid of change. Yet while the humans studied the wreckage, something else began to happen. All across the outer colonies, signals started to spread. Word of the Valiant's stand traveled faster than any fleet. Merchant ships picked it up. Freighters whispered it through coded channels. And by the time the story reached the central systems, it had already grown into legend. They said a single human warship had destroyed an entire alien armada. They said it didn't even take an hour. They said the captain never raised his voice and the crew never panicked. No one knew what was true and what wasn't, but the story inspired billions. It reminded everyone why humanity had come so far. Not because of dominance, but because of unity, courage, and the will to never surrender. But not everyone saw it as victory. On the far edges of space, deep within the Zir Dominion, the news hit like a storm. The loss of an entire fleet was unthinkable. Their leaders refused to believe it at first, calling it propaganda. But when their surviving ships limped back, broken and half-burning, they could no longer deny the truth. The Zir Council gathered in silence. The mood was dark and heavy. Reports were laid before them, visual feeds, damage readings, and fragments of intercepted human communications. The evidence was clear. Their greatest battle fleet had been destroyed by a single human ship. In that moment, their arrogance cracked. Some among them argued for vengeance, saying the Dominion's honor had been stained. Others spoke cautiously, warning that they had provoked something they didn't understand. The humans had hidden their true power for years. No one had known what their ships could really do. Now the secret was out, and it was terrifying. Back on the Valiant, the crew didn't think about power or fear. They simply did their jobs. They repaired the outer plating, recalibrated sensors, and cleaned weapon barrels still warm from battle. To them, this wasn't the story of a victory. It was just another day doing what they were trained for, protecting human space. But deep inside, many of them felt something they hadn't expected, a quiet sense of sadness. The stars had always been a place of discovery and wonder, and now they had become a place of destruction again. During the night watch, one of the younger officers stood near the viewport, watching fragments of alien metal drift past the ship's lights. "They thought we were the monsters," he whispered to another crew member. The older one nodded. "Everyone does until they learn how far humans go to protect their own." The younger officer didn't reply. He kept watching the debris until it vanished into the dark. A few days later, the Valiant received new orders from Earth Command. They were to continue their patrol and report any further alien movement. There was no talk of revenge, no new war declared, just a quiet message of caution. Observe, defend and avoid escalation. That was the human way. Humanity didn't seek to rule the stars. They simply wanted their place among them, a place they had earned through struggle, unity, and endless curiosity. Still, the Valiant's crew couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was now watching them. Every race, every world that had once ignored Earth, now spoke its name in whispers. The humans, the newcomers, had defeated one of the oldest powers in known space. It changed everything. Diplomatic channels that had been silent for years suddenly opened. Small civilizations reached out asking for trade or protection. Some offered alliances. Some simply wanted to know the truth, and through it all, the humans stayed calm. They didn't brag, they didn't threaten, and they didn't boast about what the Valiant had done. Instead, they sent out one simple statement to the galactic networks. Humanity seeks peace, but we will not bow. Those words spread faster than any weapon. They echoed across systems, reaching even the darkest corners of space. And somewhere, far from human eyes, the Zir Dominion began to prepare. Their pride wouldn't let them rest. They built new ships larger and stronger. They called for allies from neighboring empires. They wanted to prove that their power still ruled the stars. They believed humanity's strength was an illusion, that Earth had simply gotten lucky. But luck had nothing to do with it. It was discipline. It was training. It was the unshakable human spirit that refused to break. The Valiant continued its patrols, moving silently through the dark. The crew had returned to normal routines, though everyone knew that somewhere out there, the next test was waiting. They didn't know when or where it would come, but they were ready. Every time the captain passed through the bridge, he looked at his people with quiet pride. They didn't need speeches. They understood their duty. For them, it wasn't about destroying enemies. It was about defending home. The day's reports came in. Small skirmishes in distant sectors, a few unidentified probes near colony borders, whispers of movement in Zir space. Nothing yet, but everyone could feel it building, like a distant storm waiting beyond the horizon. Still, there was calm inside the Valiant. Calm and a strange sense of hope. Humanity had survived everything so far, the void, the wars, the unknown. They would face whatever came next the same way they always had, together. Far away in another part of the galaxy, the surviving Zir ships limped into a hidden dockyard. Their commanders stood in silence, watching their damaged hulls sink into repair bays. They knew the truth now. They had underestimated the humans, and somewhere deep inside, even they felt something close to respect. Because the day they challenged a human warship, they saw what no words could describe. Not power for conquest, but power born from purpose. And that, more than anything, was what made humanity unstoppable. Space was quiet again, but the silence felt different now. The Valiant drifted through the black like a watchful guardian, scanning the stars for any sign of movement. To the crew, it almost felt like the galaxy was holding its breath. After the battle with the alien fleet, nothing seemed normal anymore. The routines were the same: daily checks, engine calibrations, and sensor sweeps. But underneath it all, there was a new kind of awareness. Everyone knew the galaxy had changed. They just didn't know how much. The crew went about their duties with quiet focus. The bridge lights were dim, soft reflections flickering on steel panels. The sound of machinery filled the halls, steady, dependable, alive. The ship felt like it had a heartbeat of its own, pulsing with power and purpose. The captain often stood near the large viewing window, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the endless horizon. He didn't speak much, but when he did, people listened. The crew respected him not because he was strict, but because he was steady. He never let fear show, not even when they were surrounded by hundreds of enemy ships. Now, as the Valiant continued its patrol, reports began to arrive from human colonies. Strange signals had been detected near several outer systems. Merchant ships claimed to have seen fast-moving objects following them, before vanishing into the void. No one could confirm what they were, but everyone suspected the same thing. The Zir Dominion was moving again. Earth Command sent a quiet order to the Valiant. Stay alert, but avoid direct engagement. Humanity didn't want another war, not yet. They wanted to understand what the Zir were planning, so the crew watched. They tracked movements, intercepted transmissions, and gathered data. Every few hours, the radar picked up faint signals that disappeared before they could be identified. It was like someone was testing them, watching from a distance but never getting too close. One evening, during the night cycle, the communication officer detected a strange burst of static. It wasn't random. It had rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. When the system filtered the noise, faint words appeared. It was an old emergency signal, human code, but from an unknown source. That made the bridge go silent. The captain ordered the message replayed, and this time the words came through more clearly. "This is Colony Outpost Theta 7. We are under attack. Unknown vessels approaching. Shields failing. Request immediate." Then the signal cut out. The bridge lights dimmed slightly as the crew processed what they'd just heard. Theta 7 was a small research colony near the edge of human space, not far from where the Zir fleet had been destroyed. It wasn't a military base, just a science station studying nearby anomalies. It had minimal defenses. Without a moment of hesitation, the captain gave the order. The Valiant changed course. Engines roared softly and the stars outside shifted as the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. The journey took several hours. The crew prepared quietly, running weapon diagnostics and system checks. No one said it out loud, but they all knew what they were about to find. The Zir wanted revenge, and a defenseless colony was the perfect target. When the Valiant dropped out of hyperspace, the crew saw it instantly. Theta 7 was burning. The small station floated near a red dwarf star, surrounded by clouds of smoke and shattered metal. Fire still burned inside what remained of its main ring. Debris drifted everywhere, reflecting the dim light of the star. Sensors picked up faint life readings. Some of the colony's escape pods were still intact, drifting slowly away from the wreckage. But there were also other signals, stronger, colder, and fast-moving. The Zir were still there. 5 alien ships hovered near the wreckage, scanning for survivors. They weren't massive like the fleet from before, but they were still deadly. Black, sharp, and covered in glowing patterns that pulsed like veins. The captain didn't wait. "Rescue operations first," he ordered. "We bring our people home." The Valiant powered up its shields and accelerated toward the colony. Immediately, the alien ships noticed and turned to face it. "Energy readings rising," the tactical officer reported. "They're arming weapons." The captain nodded slowly. "They'll try to finish what they started." The aliens fired first, beams of blue light cutting through the void. The Valiant's shields flared, absorbing the impact. Then the human warship fired back. 2 precise shots that ripped through the lead alien vessel, breaking it apart in seconds. The others tried to scatter, but the Valiant was faster. In moments, space lit up again. Explosions bloomed silently, painting the stars in bursts of orange and white. One by one, the alien ships were destroyed, their wreckage spinning into darkness. When the battle was over, the crew focused on the survivors. Drones were sent out to recover escape pods and bring back anyone alive. The ship's medbay came alive with activity as exhausted scientists and engineers were pulled from the wreckage, shaken but grateful. One of them, a middle-aged researcher, managed to speak between breaths. "They didn't come for supplies," he said weakly. "They came for the data," the captain frowned. "What data?" The man took a shaky breath. "We found something in the system, an energy pattern we've never seen before. We think it's artificial, but not human, and not Zir either." That made everyone pause. Whatever the Zir were after, it wasn't revenge alone. They were searching for something buried or hidden near Theta 7. The captain ordered all recovered logs transferred to the main computer. The files were badly damaged, but fragments showed readings of strange radiation deep within the nearby asteroid field. The pattern wasn't natural. It was organized, repeating like a signal, and it was old, older than both humans and Zir. The crew didn't know what it meant. But one thing was clear. The Zir had attacked the colony not just to hurt humanity, but to keep this discovery secret. As the Valiant drifted near the debris, the captain looked out at the stars and spoke softly, almost to himself. "They're hiding something." He wasn't wrong. Days passed as the Valiant continued scanning the area. No more alien ships appeared, but the feeling of being watched never faded. Every time the crew thought they were alone, faint signals flickered at the edge of their sensors. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, whispering just beyond reach. The crew slept less, spoke in quieter tones, and checked the systems twice as often. Yet, even in the middle of uncertainty, they stayed calm. That was what made them human, the ability to keep moving even when the unknown loomed close. Eventually, the scans found the source of the energy pattern. It was deep inside a massive asteroid, an ancient structure buried under layers of rock and ice. It pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. The captain ordered a closer look. As the Valiant's lights illuminated the asteroid's surface, a strange design appeared, lines carved into the rock forming symbols no one recognized. It wasn't Zir, it wasn't any known language, it was something else. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity had seen many alien species, but this felt different. This felt older. Before they could investigate further, the sensors blared. Multiple warp signatures appeared on the edge of the system. The Zir were back, and this time there were dozens. The crew snapped into action. Alarms echoed through the ship. Lights dimmed and power levels rose. The Valiant turned slowly, facing the incoming fleet. On the main screen, the enemy ships appeared, larger than before. The crew didn't panic. They had done this once. They could do it again. But everyone understood that this time, the stakes were higher. The Zir weren't here for battle. They were here to erase something ancient, something both sides barely understood. As the alien formation closed in, the captain's voice came through the ship calmly, cutting through the tension. Hold the line. We protect this system. We protect what's ours. Outside, the stars began to flare with light as the second great battle was about to begin. Inside, the humans prepared not for glory, not for revenge, but because that's what they did. They stood their ground, and once again, the galaxy was about to learn what it truly meant when humanity refused to back down. The darkness outside the Valiant was calm for only a few moments before it shattered again. The sensors screamed with warnings, and the crew watched as dozens of alien ships appeared from the far edge of space. One after another, they dropped out of hyperspace, forming a massive formation that stretched across the screen. The Zir Dominion had returned, stronger, angrier, and more determined than before. Their ships glowed with deep blue energy, their hulls shining like cold metal blades. The formation moved with perfect discipline, spreading in a wide arc to surround the Valiant. They didn't fire right away. Instead, they began to circle, like predators studying their prey. On the human warship, the crew was calm. Every hand was steady, every eye focused. The hum of the engines filled the silence, a reminder that they were ready. The captain stood at the center of the bridge, watching the alien ships fill the stars. He didn't look nervous. He had seen worse. He had faced impossible odds before. But this time, it wasn't just about survival. It was about protecting something unknown, something buried deep inside that asteroid. The artifact hidden there wasn't just a piece of rock. It was older than human history and older than the Zir Empire. Whatever it was, the aliens didn't want anyone else to find it. That alone made it important enough to protect. The radar officer spoke quietly. There are 47 ships, sir. Heavy cruisers and destroyers. They're charging weapons. The captain nodded slowly. Then we'll meet them the same way we met the last fleet. The order was simple, but the meaning was heavy. The Valiant powered up all systems. Energy flowed through its engines, lighting the corridors with a low hum. The deck plates trembled slightly as the massive guns along the hull rotated into position. The ship's shield shimmered faintly like liquid glass, wrapping it in a blue glow. Every crew member took their station. They didn't shout or panic. They just prepared, breathing steady, eyes focused. The Zir fleet began to move in closer, forming attack lines. Their leader, a massive flagship at the center, sent out a transmission. The alien voice came through sharp and distorted. You have violated sacred space, it said. You will not leave this system alive. The captain didn't answer right away. He let the silence stretch for a few seconds before replying calmly. You attacked a human colony. You destroyed innocent lives. We don't run and we don't bow. You know that now, the alien voice hissed with anger. Then you will be erased. The signal ended and then the stars lit up. The Zir fleet opened fire all at once. Waves of plasma and antimatter streaked through the void, painting space in streaks of blue and gold. The Valiant's shields flared as the blasts hit, shaking the ship but holding strong. The bridge lights flickered for a second before stabilizing. Shields at 90%, the officer reported. Return fire, the captain said softly. The Valiant's cannons roared to life. In silence, bolts of energy and rail slugs shot across the void. The first volley tore through 3 enemy ships instantly. The second shattered another formation before they could even adjust. The battle was fast, violent, and almost beautiful in its precision. Inside the Valiant, every move was timed to perfection. The crew worked like a single mind, each person trusting the other completely. There was no fear, only focus. Outside, explosions lit up the darkness, turning space into a sea of drifting fire. The Zir ships tried to regroup, sending smaller vessels to flank from both sides. But the Valiant's sensors saw everything. The targeting systems adjusted automatically, predicting every maneuver before it happened. 2 quick bursts later, the flanking ships were gone. The Zir flagship stayed back, watching, analyzing. The alien commander must have realized what was happening. Their fleet wasn't just losing, it was being dismantled piece by piece. They tried to adapt, sending drones and decoys, spreading their formation wide. The Valiant responded with cold precision, unleashing quantum torpedoes that exploded in silent flashes, turning the enemy's clever tricks into clouds of burning fragments. The crew felt every vibration through the floor, but they didn't stop. They knew what was at stake. Hours passed like minutes. The battle raged on, the blackness of space filled with color and destruction. The Valiant moved like a hunter, calm, relentless, unstoppable. Still, the Zir didn't retreat. Even as their ships fell one after another, they kept coming. It was pride. The Dominion couldn't accept defeat twice to the same human warship. Finally, the alien flagship pushed forward. It was massive, 3 times the size of the Valiant, with weapons glowing hotter than stars. The air on the bridge grew tense as the sensors locked onto it. Main guns charging, the officer reported. The captain nodded. Hold fire until it's close. The alien ship fired first. A single blast of energy brighter than anything before hit the Valiant's shields head-on. The ship rocked hard, lights flickering, panels sparking. The crew braced, holding onto their stations. Shields at 60%, came the report. The captain stood firm. Hold steady. Prepare the main rail cannon. Outside, the Valiant turned slowly, aligning its most powerful weapon, a massive railgun built into the spine of the ship. It charged with a low rumble that echoed through every deck. The alien flagship fired again, striking the Valiant's shields and shaking the hull. Alarms flashed red. Fire, the captain said quietly. The rail cannon released its shot. A single slug of dense metal accelerated almost to light speed, cutting across the void. It hit the alien flagship dead center. For a second, nothing happened. Then the massive ship split apart in silence, a wave of white fire spreading from its core. The explosion lit up the system like a new sun. The remaining Zir ships froze for a moment, unsure whether to continue or flee. That hesitation was all the Valiant needed. The human ship fired again, tearing through what was left. And just like that, it was over. The battle that had begun with fury ended in silence. The wreckage drifted through the dark, glowing faintly. The Valiant's engines powered down slowly as the crew worked to assess damage. Shields were low, energy reserves strained, but the ship was still intact. They had survived again. For a long time, no one spoke. The bridge was filled only with the sound of faint static from damaged speakers and the soft hum of the reactor. Finally, the captain spoke. Damage reports? Minor structural loss, no casualties, came the reply. He gave a slow nod. Good. Send a signal to Earth Command. The Zir fleet has been destroyed, the message was sent. But before they could relax, the sensors picked up something strange. Deep inside the asteroid, where the mysterious structure was hidden, the energy readings had changed. They were no longer faint. They were growing, stronger by the second. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Whatever had been buried there had awakened. Is it reacting to the battle? One of the officers asked. No, another replied. It's reacting to the destruction. The energy spike started right after the flagship exploded. The captain stared at the readings. The pulse was steady, rhythmic, almost alive. He didn't know what it was, but he knew it wasn't safe to ignore. The Valiant stayed in orbit, scanning the asteroid from a distance. The energy readings continued to grow, forming a strange wave pattern that began to spread outward, like ripples through water. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't radiation, it was a signal, a transmission. And it wasn't aimed at the Valiant, it was reaching farther, much farther. The crew watched the readings in silence as the pulse stretched beyond their sensors, beyond human space, beyond even the Zir Dominion's territory. No one spoke, but the thought was the same across every mind on that bridge. Whatever had been buried there, someone somewhere had just heard it wake up. The stars outside seemed suddenly darker, the silence heavier. The victory they had just earned felt small compared to whatever had just begun. The captain turned away from the glowing screens, his expression calm but thoughtful. "Prepare the ship," he said quietly. "We may not be alone anymore." The crew nodded. They didn't ask questions. They simply obeyed. Because out here in the endless sea of stars, humanity had just shaken something far older than both them and their enemies. And soon, the whole galaxy would know it. The Valiant floated silently above the ruined asteroid, surrounded by drifting debris and the fading light of the destroyed alien fleet. The crew had survived the fiercest battle of their lives, but no one felt victorious. There was something different in the air now, a quiet tension that none of them could name. The mysterious signal from the asteroid continued to pulse like a heartbeat. Every few seconds it sent out another wave of energy, spreading farther and farther into the dark. The sensors couldn't trace its full reach anymore. It was too strong, too strange. On the bridge, everyone watched in silence. The captain stood near the front window, staring out at the cold stars. "Is there any response yet?" he asked. The communications officer shook his head. "None, sir. But the frequency's rising. Whatever it's sending, it's getting stronger." The captain frowned. "Can we block it?" "We tried, sir. Nothing stops it. It's like it doesn't follow our physics." The words hung heavy in the air. The crew exchanged nervous glances, but no one dared to speak. They all felt it, the unease of something unseen, something ancient. Finally, the captain turned to the science officer. "What do you make of it?" The officer hesitated before answering. "It's not natural. The signal doesn't seem random. It's structured, almost like a message to who? That's the part we don't know." The bridge fell silent again. Outside, the stars remained calm, but something about them felt wrong. Like the universe itself was holding its breath. Hours passed as the Valiant orbited quietly. The crew took shifts, running scans, checking systems, and keeping their eyes on the signal. The strange energy wave had stopped growing stronger, but it hadn't disappeared either. It stayed constant, a rhythmic pulse echoing through the void. When the captain finally left the bridge to rest, the corridors of the Valiant were quiet. The hum of the ship's systems was the only sound. Crew members spoke in low voices, some pretending to be calm, others whispering fears they didn't dare share aloud. "What if it's calling something?" one of the technicians said quietly. Another replied, "Like what?" The first one shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe whatever built that thing in the first place." That thought stayed with them. The next day, Earth Command finally replied. The message came through full of static, but the words were clear enough. "Do not engage the signal source. Do not attempt recovery. Await further orders." The captain read it twice, then sighed. "They're scared," he muttered. He knew Earth Command too well. If they were telling him to wait, it meant they had no idea what this was either. The crew followed orders, but curiosity grew stronger every hour. They kept their distance, but they couldn't look away from the asteroid. The scanners showed deep structures inside it, tunnels, chambers, and a large central core pulsing with the same strange rhythm. Then, late on the third day, something changed. The pulse stopped. The entire crew froze when the signal vanished from the sensors. For a moment there was peace, a calm that made everyone exhale in relief. But then the asteroid itself began to move. The readings spiked suddenly. Massive energy surged from its center. The surface cracked open like a shell and light burst from the fissures. "Power surge from the asteroid," shouted one of the officers. "It's off the charts." The captain rushed back to the bridge. "What's happening?" "It's activating, sir. The whole structure is waking up." Through the forward window, they watched as the asteroid's surface peeled away, revealing a hidden shape underneath, something smooth and metallic, buried for ages. It wasn't a rock at all. It was a ship, a massive ship, the kind of scale that made even the Valiant look small. It rose slowly, surrounded by waves of light, shedding debris like old skin. The readings on the scanners went wild. The crew stared in silence, their minds struggling to understand what they were seeing. It's not Zier, whispered the science officer. The design is completely different. Older, much older. The captain narrowed his eyes. How old? The officer hesitated. At least 1,000,000 years. A chill spread through the room. The massive ship continued to rise until it floated freely in space. Then it stopped, perfectly still. No weapons, no engines visible. Just a silent colossus wrapped in faint golden light. Suddenly, the Valiant's communication system activated by itself. Every screen on the bridge flickered, showing strange symbols and shifting patterns. A voice, calm, deep, and emotionless, echoed through the speakers. It spoke in a language no one had ever heard, but somehow they understood it. The Guardian has awakened. The signal has been received. The trial begins. The bridge went silent. What trial? Someone whispered. Before anyone could respond, the massive ship turned slowly toward the Valiant. The scanners went offline instantly. Every system on the human ship began to fail one by one. Lights dimming, engines stalling, weapons shutting down. Power loss across all decks. Shouted an engineer. The captain clenched his fists. Restart the cores, now! We're trying, it's not responding. The Valiant drifted helplessly as the enormous alien ship glowed brighter. It didn't attack. It didn't even move closer. It just watched. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the systems came back online. The lights returned. Engines roared. The alien ship's glow faded, and the same calm voice returned over the speakers. Your strength has been measured. Your courage has been noted. The war you fight is small, yet your will is not. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. The voice didn't sound threatening, but it wasn't friendly either. What are you? The captain asked quietly. There was a short pause. Then the voice replied, We are the Keepers. Long before your kind existed, we watched the stars burn and fade. We built the vaults to protect what must never be found. The captain frowned. You mean the structure on that asteroid? Yes, it was not meant for you. But you came. You fought. You survived. The lights on the bridge flickered again as the ship's scanners came back online. They showed a growing field of light around the alien ship, some kind of distortion expanding outward. The voice continued. You are not the first to find us, but you are the first to endure our guardians. Humanity has awakened the path. The bridge fell completely silent. The path to what? The captain asked. The voice didn't answer. Instead, the alien ship began to rise higher, its glow reaching a blinding level. The captain shielded his eyes as he shouted, Pull us back! Get distance! The Valiant's engines roared to life as the ship moved away, but the energy field expanded faster. It spread out like a ripple through the stars, passing through the Valiant harmlessly, but stretching farther and farther beyond sight. When the light finally faded, the alien ship was gone. The crew stared at the empty space where it had been. No trace, no radiation, nothing left behind, just the cold silence of the stars. The captain exhaled slowly. What just happened? No one had an answer. The science officer looked pale. That wasn't just a ship. That was something from before recorded time. Whatever it was, it marked us. Marked us? He nodded slowly. We were scanned, studied, and now something out there knows humanity exists. The captain didn't respond. He just looked out the window at the stars that suddenly felt closer and more dangerous than ever. For a long time, no one spoke. Then the communications officer whispered, Do you think it was warning us? The captain finally turned, his expression calm but serious. No, he said quietly. I think it was preparing us. The words lingered in the air. The crew didn't understand yet, but deep inside they felt something had changed. The galaxy was no longer the same place it was before that signal. The Valiant turned slowly toward home, its engines lighting up the dark. Behind it, the shattered remains of the Zier fleet drifted in silence, and the asteroid that had started it all was now gone, as if it had never existed. But somewhere, far beyond human space, that signal kept traveling, faster than light, deeper than any map had ever gone, and whatever it was calling to had already begun to answer. Weeks passed since the Valiant returned from the edge of known space, yet the silence from Earth Command said more than any report could. The crew had seen something that defied explanation, a structure buried for 1,000,000 years, A signal that reached across galaxies and an ancient ship that spoke like it was judging humanity itself. But now, life aboard the Valiant had changed. The ship still moved, the system still worked, the stars still shone, but there was a quiet unease among everyone. No one said it out loud, but each person knew deep inside. Whatever they had awakened out there wasn't over. The captain spent most of his time in the observation deck. He didn't speak much anymore. He would stand for hours, staring at the stars as if waiting for them to blink back. The galaxy felt different now. The usual chatter of space traffic, the coded beacons from colonies, the hum of distant transmissions, all still there, but beneath it, something new pulsed faintly. A soft rhythm in the background of space itself, the same rhythm that had once come from that buried ship. It wasn't loud enough to scare anyone, but it was there, steady and endless, like a heartbeat echoing through the stars. The crew called it the Whisper. Scientists on Earth had no answers. They studied the data the Valiant brought back, ran simulations, compared it with every known form of signal, but nothing matched. The conclusion was simple and terrifying. It didn't follow any known physics. Still, Earth Command told the Valiant to rest and resupply. The captain followed orders, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He knew something was coming. He could feel it. A month later, strange reports began to spread through the fleet. Distant colonies near the galactic edge had picked up fragments of strange energy. At first it was dismissed as background noise, but soon it became clear. The same pattern from the asteroid was appearing in other regions, light years apart. Whatever the signal had awakened, it was spreading. The Valiant was ordered to investigate again. This time the crew didn't hesitate. They knew what to expect, or at least they thought they did. As the ship left Earth orbit, the captain watched the planet grow smaller in the distance. It looked peaceful, untouched, unaware of the danger that might be approaching. "Do you think we should have told them everything?" one of the officers asked quietly. The captain didn't turn. "We did," he said. "They just don't believe it yet." The journey took weeks. The Valiant crossed systems filled with gas clouds, frozen moons, and dark voids where light seemed to die. Each passing day, the whispers on their scanners grew louder, clearer, and more structured. One night, as the crew rested, the communications array activated by itself again. Strange patterns filled the main display, symbols that looked familiar, the same ones the alien ship had shown them before. The science officer leaned closer. "It's the same message," she said softly. "But it's different now. It's longer." The captain stared at the display. "Can you translate it?" "I'm trying," she replied, fingers moving fast across the console. "It's not a direct language. It's layered, like it's meant to be understood in sound and light together." The words appeared slowly on the screen, one by one. The trial continues. "The Watchers awaken. Prepare the way." The bridge fell silent. No one spoke for a long time. Then the captain said, almost to himself, "They're not talking to us this time. They're talking to someone else." The officer turned to him, pale. "Then who are the Watchers?" He didn't answer. He just stared into the stars. 2 days later, they reached the outer edge of human space, a place of dead worlds and forgotten stations. One of those stations, long abandoned, had begun to glow faintly in deep orbit. The Valiant approached carefully. The readings were strange. No life signs, but massive amounts of unknown energy. When the ship came closer, they saw it. The station wasn't alone anymore. Floating beside it were 3 enormous shapes, faint and translucent like ghostly outlines. They shimmered with golden light, forming and reforming as if deciding what shape to take. The crew stared in silence. "What are we looking at?" someone whispered. The scanners gave no answers. Every time they tried to lock onto the objects, the readings changed. Sometimes they appeared solid, other times completely invisible. The captain gave a quiet order. "Hold position. No one fires unless I say so." Suddenly, the communication system came alive again. The same deep voice filled the bridge, calm but powerful. "You have come again. Humanity moves with curiosity, not wisdom." The captain stepped forward. "We're here to understand. You left something buried in our space. You owe us an answer." There was a pause. Then the voice replied, "We owe nothing. The vaults were sealed to protect this galaxy from what sleeps beyond." You broke the silence. The captain's chest tightened. "Then tell us what we woke up." The voice seemed to echo deeper, vibrating through the walls of the ship. You did not wake us. You woke them. The crew exchanged fearful glances. Who are they? The captain demanded. The voice did not answer immediately. The glowing shapes outside the station pulsed once, twice, then aligned into a perfect formation. They were the first, the voice said. They built empires that swallowed the stars. They burned worlds until the void itself screamed. We ended them once, but your signal called them again. The bridge went completely silent. The air felt heavier. The captain clenched his fists. So you're saying we just brought something back? Something worse than you? Not worse, the voice replied. Older. Hunger given form. The golden lights outside began to fade, disappearing one by one until only the dark station remained. The voice grew softer. You cannot stop what comes, but you can survive if you remember who you are. And with that, the transmission ended. The Valiant's crew sat frozen for a long moment, listening to the empty static. Then slowly, a new sound filled the room. A low, deep rumble that shook the ship. The stars outside flickered as if something massive had just entered the system. The sensors went wild. A dark shape appeared at the edge of space. Enormous, silent, swallowing light around it. It wasn't glowing like the Keeper's ship. It was darker than the void itself, and it was moving toward them. Unknown contact, shouted the officer. It's huge. Bigger than anything we've ever recorded. Evasive maneuvers, the captain ordered. The Valiant turned hard, engines roaring. But the dark shape didn't chase, and it just kept coming, slow and steady, like it already knew where they'd go. Then a deep vibration spread through the ship. The crew covered their ears as the sound grew louder, not through the speakers, but through their own minds. It wasn't sound at all. It was a presence. It was aware of them, and it was ancient. For the first time in his career, the captain felt real fear. Not the kind that comes from battle, but the kind that comes from realizing humanity had just stepped into something far beyond its understanding. He gave the only order he could. Retreat, full burn. Get us out of here now! The Valiant's engines blazed, tearing through the dark, speeding toward the safety of human space. But even as they fled, the sensors kept picking up that same pulse, a deep, steady beat following them from afar. After hours of silence, they finally escaped the system. The dark shape vanished from the scanners, but no one relaxed. The captain knew it wasn't over. Back on Earth, their report was met with disbelief and fear. Scientists argued. Governments panicked quietly, and the public never learned the full truth. The Valiant was ordered to remain in orbit, sealed from the press. The crew wasn't allowed to speak, but at night, when the stars were visible from the viewing deck, the captain would stand there again, staring at the endless black sky. He didn't need the sensors to know. He could feel it. The galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had gone looking for knowledge, and in doing so, they had lit a signal that could not be undone. Somewhere beyond the stars, something vast was moving again, slow, patient, unstoppable. The whispers had stopped now, replaced by something deeper, a low, steady rhythm echoing through every communication band across human space. It wasn't a warning anymore. It was a countdown. And as the Valiant drifted in orbit, its crew staring silently into the dark, they all felt the same truth deep inside. The war that began with a single human ship and an alien fleet was only the beginning.